a little bit of hop along with it. It was very, very good beer. And they made it just that one summer, and now they have never brought it back. And I'm like, please either bring back the beer or give me the recipe. I really would like to brew that.
I mean, at this point, there's just so much good stuff. I think the U.S. just set the record for most breweries. Like in the 18th or 19th century, when people couldn't travel that far, there were breweries every 10 miles or so. And now with the microbrew explosion, they're everywhere, and you can find every kind of beer. I mean, there's a key lime goza that I've had that's really good. And you're like, what the heck? That's like something I never would have heard of. Or a beer that was like a mole stout that had coffee and chocolate and cinnamon and pepper in it.
Mm-hmm.
Consider that combination, but it's pretty popular. But I'm not really a coffee guy, so coffee and beer kind of doesn't work for me. But hey, there's even if you're into a narrow type of beer, you will be able to find many beers that work for you.
Yeah, that's one thing that I like about the American beer market right now is everybody's still in that experimental phase. I mean, I've even seen some people come out with bacon beers, believe it or not, that have a bacon flavor mixed in with them somehow. That to this day I don't know how they did it.
I think it's a smoke thing. Like it's from Rogue. I think they're out of Seattle, and it was based on a donut shop called Voodoo Donuts, and it was like maple bacon donut. But the smoke just was a bit too much. Like smoke in beer, it's got to be a subtle amount, because otherwise it's like, is my beer burned, or just a weird flavor overpowers it. But
yeah.
It's like really everybody's going to try it. Like I said, any beer, like I'll give it a shot. Why not?
Yeah, there are a couple though that once I've tried them, it's that I make a mental note never to go there again. Like there were a couple of beers. I found a brewery that was, I want to say it was local. I think they were called Rebel Brewery out here. They had their Oktoberfest was nearly water. That was kind of disappointed with that. And then their stout that they had after that, they called it a coffee stout, and it tasted literally like 20-day-old coffee that had been sitting on the burner. And it's like, you guys, come on, you got to up your game a little bit here. You're giving us a bad name.
True. But you find one bad one, you probably find 10 that are pretty solid.
Yeah, we found a lot of pretty solid ones. There was one in particular, was a home brew that someone had come up with. It was a cider, and the person had been experimenting, because ciders will take a very long time, because you usually have to use one of the high alcohol wine or champagne yeasts with them. And I think he had cultured a saison yeast and then used that to ferment the cider so that it would be done quicker. And that cider was outstanding. I mean, it had just a little bit of the tart to it, a little bit of that farmhouse flavor that you get from the saison, and it all just melted together so well that I was just blown away by it. But yeah, so what are some of the beers that you've decided once you've tried them, you're not going to touch them again? And commercial like Budweiser and Miller doesn't count.
Well, I met a friend in town who's a big beer guy, and we went to his house, and he had me try some of the IPAs that are like the most coveted in the country, like Heady Topper and Pliny the Elder and Pseudo Sue, and some of these just beers that people just covet. And all the IPAs, all I can taste is the bitterness. It's almost like, I mean, it's not the same flavor, but it's almost like you drink orange juice after brushing your teeth. Like, it just doesn't feel right. And every once in a while, I can go for a bitter beer, but for the most part, IPAs, I just can't drink them. And it seems like everybody just absolutely loves it, and it's just overwhelming how the styles there. I mean, I was at a brewery's like anniversary party, and they had a special cask, and it was like an IPA that was like a creamsicle flavor. It's like vanilla and like orange, but it had the bitter finish. And I was like, well, if I went for the bitter finish, I would have liked this. Don't know if that's the palate, but it's just not to my style. So yeah, it's a little odd. Like, you go to somebody's party and like they have beer, and you're like, oh boy, this is where the real test comes in, because they could have a really good beer for most people, but like, not really my style. So I'll usually bring my own, no matter what the situation is.
Yeah,
kind of particular.
yeah, I do that sometimes too. Now, if I'm going out to the the one karaoke bar that I like to go to is a dive bar, so they don't have much in the way of they don't have anything in the way of craft beers. Um, so there, I'll probably drink some of the cheap stuff there just because it's there. But otherwise, um, yeah, I do tend to try to either bring my own beer or ask ahead to say what do you guys have, what do you what are you serving before I come in, so I can know whether or not that I need to bring my own. But then again, I also brew my own, so that helps a bit too.
Yeah, I mean, you just bring it. Don't you have your little cask with you? You just carry it on your back.
Oh, I wish. I'm still trying to talk. I finally talked my wife into letting me get a keg to start kegging my beers, and now I've just got to get the rest of the equipment to be able to make a draft system here in the house. So
That's impressive. See, that's a step I'm not ready to go yet. The actual brewing my own. There's plenty of good stuff around. I'm sure something I could do, like editing my audio. I'm sure I could do it, but I prefer not to,
yeah,
and let others do it. But come down to Arkansas and try out your beers.
yeah, you definitely have to come if you're in the Little Rock area. Definitely a brewery called Diamond Bear. They have probably some of the better beers. I've not had a bad beer from them yet. They have everything from IPAs, double IPAs. They carry a couple of stouts, a couple of blondes, an Irish red or two. They're a really good, solid brewing company here in Northwest Arkansas. I have to give it up for there's Bentonville Brewery, Ozark Beer they have a good IPA. It's there's the bitterness to it, but you still have enough of the malt that you get a balanced flavor. So you're not like just overshot with hops. They also have a cream stout that when you sip it, it's almost like sipping a cup of cream coffee. It's just just nice and smooth, and you barely taste the hoppy flavor to it. It doesn't taste like it's burnt. They're really good beer. But yeah, we're lucky here that we've got the water table here lends itself really well to the darker beers. So we've got quite a few places that make some good reds and the browns and the amber ales and such. So, of course, down there.
Speaking my language there.
Now, down in Georgia, you said you have a few breweries going through there. Do your breweries down there tend to have more of the darker beers, or are they moving more towards the light end? Because I know water has a big factor in that.
Well, there's definitely a mix. I mean, there's one called Wild Heaven that's near me. I mean, nice name there. But they had a beer called Dionysus, and it kind of reminded me of that sour I had yesterday. It was like 6 different kinds of wild barrel-aged ales mixed in with their quad, which is like a really heavy, kind of sugary beer. It's like a Belgian style. And that was like the first time I'd had that kind of combination. And that's one of my favorites, and it's only available like in Bombers. But that's a good one. I mean, there are a bunch of really good breweries in town, and that's the cool part. And like Athens is an hour away from here. It's where the University of Georgia is. They have a few really well-known beers like Terrapin. I mean, like Sweetwater. There's some names that these beers have like actually made it, nationwide. But there's a bunch of good local breweries, and I like to go because there are so many of them. They seem to have anniversary events every month or so, and so I'll go with a friend of mine, and they have weird arcane laws here, like you can only get 36 ounces of beer in a tour. You can't actually buy beer at a brewery, which you can do in Arkansas. So you guys are ahead of us there. But the smarter breweries, like they give you tickets. So the one anniversary party I went to, they gave you like 12 tickets, and each one was supposed to be 3 ounces. Well, it was a little more than 3 ounces, so we got our money's worth. Well, but there's good stuff all around town. Probably should do some more beer trading. I had a friend who lives in Houston. They have a special pumpkin beer once a year at St. Arnold's Pumpkinator, and he mailed me some. So I mailed him some Georgia beer and leaned heavy on the IPAs because he likes that, and I actually was able to mail beer, and only one of them blew up, so that was a good sign.
Hey, not bad. Now, do you like any of the Belgian styles, like some of the Trappist or Abbey ales and such, or are you kind of on the fence with those and are a bit more traditional?
I like the double which is like their brown ale. One year I was going to tailgate for a Titans game, and the friends there were drinking. Well, actually, they were drinking an okay beer. They're drinking like Sierra Nevada and stuff. But I brought Corson Donk. That was like the first Belgian beer. I'm like, drunken monks making beer. This sounds like the greatest thing in the world. So Corson Donk is like one of my go-tos because it's available in a corked version. That when you think beer with a cork, that sounds pretty cool because you don't have to have an opener. Although one time I did a show and I had a corked beer and it wouldn't go, so I had to get a corkscrew to open it up. But the Corson Donk Brown is good. You can also get it in 4-packs because that's the beer snobs. Like, oh, my beer comes in a 4-pack, not a 6-pack, because it's more expensive, obviously. But that's one I like, and there are a bunch of good ones there. For some reason, it's the multiples of 2 I like the single and the triple. I don't like as much, but I like the doubles and the quads.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what that's all about. The triples always seem to have a bunch of coriander in there, which can taste a little like peppery or even soapy, and the singles seem to come out. I mean, they're lighter, but they're kind of bitter, maybe in a lager kind of IPA thing.
Well, since you're closer on the east to the East Coast than I am, up towards Massachusetts, there's a Trappist Abbey that they're the only Trappist brewery in the U.S. That's certified from the Trappist monks as an official brewery, and they have something called Spencer. That I think they've been brewing it now for, I want to say, about 5 years. So if you get a chance to try that, you have to let me know how that is, because right now you can't get it outside of Massachusetts. But it's
Spencer, I think, for hire, but that's because I'm old. I do have a friend, who's a big beer guy who lives up there, so he's got to be close enough. That's one I see. Now I got to check that out.
Yeah,
Hey, honey, you want to do a tour of like New England, and basically I'll go from brewery to brewery because there are a ton of really well known. Like I think it's called Maine Brewing Company, and there are a few out of near Boston and Massachusetts that are well known, and it's everywhere. There's great stuff, but I feel like the New England area is rather dense in terms of your choices.
Yeah, and I have to give a thumbs up to Boston Brewery, the Sam Adams guys, because even though they've gone a little bit more commercial, every year they have a homebrew competition that's free to enter, and they usually will pick, I want to say they pick either 2 or 3 winners, and those winners get to take their homebrew and upscale it to commercial level, and it gets put into the winner's 6-pack, basically, that has 1 or 2 beers from each winner mixed together. So, and that's something I think is really cool for people like me that are brewing their own stuff at home and trying to make something that's as good as the professionals.
Yeah, Ballast Point does something like that. They had I think it was a porter, and they had a homebrew series, but in addition to having these homebrewed beers, you could go online and get the recipe for them and make them yourself, which I thought was pretty cool idea. And Sam Adams, I have my own site, and I occasionally do like beer reviews, like beer of the week. And every once in a while I try to go, hey, bargain beers. And I really feel like this time of year, these Oktoberfest beers are actually, the mainstream ones are actually really good. Like Sierra Nevadas, it's just a brewery in Germany. Every year they pick one. Mm-hmm. And that's their thing. And then the Sam Adams Oktoberfest, I had one recently, and you're like, oh, Sam Adams, that's really mainstream. But their Oktoberfest is good, and some of their, less known versions are pretty good. Well, they have like 50 versions, it seems.
Yeah. Yeah, I like Sam Adams' Oktoberfest. Diamond Bear here, local, somewhat local, has a really good Oktoberfest. And then there's another type of beer that's what the Oktoberfest is brewed off of. It's called a Marzen. I don't know if you tried that one. It's a little bit of a lighter color, but it's another really good beer that only comes out about this time of year.
Yeah, I think that might be the style that the Sierra Nevada is, because I poured it and it was really light. I'm like, uh-oh, and it did have kind of a bitter finish, but it was pretty balanced before that.
Yeah.
On the left hand, Oktoberfest is good because it's like you get the sweet, you get the hoppy, you get everything. Everybody's happy, right?
Yep.
And that's what's important with beer. Everybody's happy.
Well, there's actually a history to the Marzen, though, that in Germany there's a certain amount of time during the year that you can't brew because the weather's not right for the way that they make them, which is the lagers. And those have to be kept cold as they're fermenting. And so they will make a batch in March, which is why it's